Hey everyone, welcome again. So far in our course, what we have done is we have set up our React with the help of CDN and have written our first code, right? So you can clearly see the message, hello from React, that's it. But now let's talk about this particular parameter, that is props. Now what is a prop? Basically, if you see, this is an h1 tag, right? Similarly, you can actually create different HTML tags and you can pass it on and it will actually create a tag for you, right? So if I go over here and if I want to pass any attribute for this tag, I can actually do that with the help of this particular parameter that are props. Yes, in React, we call them props. And basically in basic HTML, you'll call them attributes and stuff like that, right? So over here, treat this as attributes only. So you can pass in attributes for your HTML elements, right? So if you want to pass some ID, you can just say, and you can just go over here and you can just say that I want to pass an ID and let me pass this ID as heading or message one, something like that, anything like that, right? And if you want, if you go over here and if you go to inspect and if you look at your body and inside this root, you will see that now this h1 tag has an ID as message one, right? Similarly, you can pass on any parameter that you want, right? So similarly, if I want to pass a class name, suppose I want to give this a class of heading 1. Something like that, right? So I can pass that on as well. So this will be inside a string and yes. So now if I go over here, so you will see I've also provided this a class as heading 1, right? So similarly, you can pass on different attributes, different properties in this particular object that is known as your props object, right? We'll be talking about props in more detail moving forward. Alright, so I'll just remove this class attribute for now and basically let's try to do something. Alright, so if I go at the top, I have an example already set up, so I'll just uncomment this so you will be able to see it better. Alright, so basically what we have over here, inside our root we have our div with the ID parent, and inside that we have a child div with the ID child. Then we have two greetings, one greeting and second greeting, hello from React heading 2, just a random structure like that. Now just imagine that I want you to build this, but now you just have to use React code, right? You cannot directly write this particular code. This is just for your reference that you have to build this, right? How will that, actually it will look is if I refresh this, right, and I just remove the React code from here, just let me comment this. Right, so this actually looks like this, hello from React heading 2, and if you go over here, if you go to inspect, if you go to elements, so this is how this particular div is structured. Parent, under that we have a child div, under that we have two greetings, one hello from React 2, like that, right? Just a simple HTML structure. Now I need you to build this with the help of React. So what I will do is I'll just comment this code out, and now let's try building this particular component with the help of React. So I'll just uncomment the script tag and now let's just try building this. So now what you will do, this div is parent, this, right? So we'll just have ID as parent. So the parent div is created, but now what we have next, we have to create this child div, and inside this child div we again have two heading tags which says hello from React and hello from React heading 2, something like that, right? So basically, as you know, that this acts as a children parameter. So when you are using h1, your content was your children, but now as you're using div, you can have this div as your children, right? So how will you do that? But the content is content, but this div is again a new element, so you'll have to create a new element again. So how we are going to do that? So I'll just remove this content part from here, and I'll again use the react.createElement method, something like that. And when you use react.createElement, you can just again create a new div, right? And then you can actually pass in the ID for this as well. So again, this will have a prop, right? And for this prop, basically you can pass your attributes over here. So you can just have an ID, and the ID for this is child, right? So you just have to pass child over here. So I'll just pass child, something like that. So this is how your child element has also been created. But now, for this child element, you have two children. One is h1, one is h2. Now what you will do? So basically, when you have multiple children, you can actually make use of the array. So first, let me just format this for you so you will be able to see this clearly. Alright, so this is the place where we are working right now. Just look at this particular place. Message is react.createElement. We have created a div, we have created a parent, and inside this parent we have created a child, right? And inside this child, now what we want to do, now we want to create two extra React elements. So I'll have an array so that I can hold multiple values, and inside this array I'll again basically have this particular function. I'll again create a new element. So let's create a new element like that. And this time, this element will be h1. This is the first element, that is h1. And the ID for this, let's pass it whatever ID we have given over here. Greeting, right? Let's pass greeting. Something like that, right? And I'll remove this array from here. The work is done, right? So we have created one element, and similarly this is one array element, right? So for this one array element, after this we need the second element, so I'll just add a comma, and over here we will have our second array element, something like that. Let me again format this and let me explain this in a better way, right? So what happened over here is we created a div with the ID parent. For this parent we went down and we created a child div. For this child div, we again went down, we again created two new elements, and we created h1 and h2. This should be h2, right? So this is how we have given them ID child, ID parent, ID greeting 1 and greeting 2. Let's pass it like that. Now we do not have any children for these h1 and h2, so we'll just have to pass the children, basically the content, right? So what is the content? The content is hello from React over here. And now the second one is hello from React heading 2, something like that, right? So I'll just pass the content, right? So this we have created. Now let's see if this is done or not. So if we go, yes, this is done, and you can see root. Inside root we have parent, inside parent we have a child div, inside child div we have two greeting divs. So this is actually done. But now you must be wondering that why we have to take all of these things, and why cannot we just create it like this, simply HTML, right? Because if you see, this code is not that good. I mean, I myself realize that when I'm teaching this, you must be seeing React and you must be thinking that, okay, this is getting complex, right? So that is why, suppose if you have a longer HTML code, right? If you have a bigger HTML code, now suppose I want to create another div, and I just open this up and I say to you that, okay, this is your, basically this is your layout that you have to create, but now let's do this as well. Let's copy this and let's have this as well again, right? Suppose your HTML keeps on going longer, keeps on going bigger. So what you will do, will you write code like this? That will get a lot complex, right? So that is why what we do is we do not write code like this in React. This is just an example to show you that how you can actually work with CDN. But in real life application, we do not work with CDN. We actually work with some build tools, and there is a better way of writing React code with HTML that is known as JSX, right? So in the next lecture, we'll be starting with our build tool. We'll see what a build tool is, what it will provide you with, and we'll also write our components with the help of JSX. So these are the two things that we're going to see in the next lecture. Thank you.